But in episode 2, the big man doesn't agree to take Gus along with him. Gus just continues to follow him. The big man thinks he gets rid of Gus by throwing trash all over the forest because Gus was told to clean up after yourself. But as the big man settles down for camp that night and he's eating food, he hears rustling from behind him. He knows it's Gus and he says, "Come out where I can see you." And Gus starts peppering him with questions, which just annoys him. To the point where the big man says, "Look, kid, guys like me aren't great for kids like you." The questions, though, persist and the big man gets tired of it, so he just turns over to go to sleep. But when he does that, Gus notices that there's a bunch of food hanging out of the big man's backpack, and he can't help himself. So when the big man wakes up the next morning, Gus has eaten most of his food, chewed up a map, and, more importantly, taking his prescription meds, which infuriates the big man. But Gus says, "Not to worry, I know where we can get food." And he points to a cabin way up top in the mountains. So the two head up there. The big man tells Gus, "You head in, I'll keep lookout from outside." And when Gus heads in, it's a visitor center for the park. Gus is looking at some knickknacks and whatnot, but then all of a sudden he gets really freaked out because this place is a bunch of deer heads mounted on the wall, just like the big man said. And as Gus tries to get out of there, he gets caught in a trap. When the trap goes off, a boy around Gus's age named Rusty comes out and says, "Dad, you should take a look at this." And Gus screams at them, "You're not going to put my head on a wall." And in fact, they're not. It's actually a really good family who invite Gus and the big man in to share their food. Although they are a little concerned. The whole family wears masks because they haven't been out in a while. The big man lets them know, though, "You guys can take your masks off because I don't have the sick and he can't transmit it." The family takes their masks off, but then the mother sends Rusty to his room. And when she does that, Gus asks the woman, "Are you Rusty's mama?" Because Gus has never seen a mother before. They're more surprised that Gus talks. So she answers his question with a question, saying, "Who taught you how to talk?" And he says, "My pubba. He had me do school." Gus then shows the woman a picture of his mom and says, "Do you know Birdie? Because we're trying to find her." But of course, she doesn't. Eventually, the husband asks, "Well, how do you two know each other?" And at the same exact time, Gus says, "He's taking me to Colorado," and the big man says, "We don't." The group continues to talk, and you find out that Gus and Rusty are really close in age. Rusty's 1 year older than him. And Rusty was one of the last kids to be born until every kid born was a hybrid. Rusty, though, has never interacted with kids his own age. And while the mother was a little concerned about Rusty hanging out with a hybrid, she has a giant smile on her face looking at the joy of her son playing with another boy his age. While the mother was checking up on her son, the husband was chatting with the big man. He actually recognized the big man because the big man, whose actual name is Tommy, used to be a football star before the giant crumble. Eventually, though, the husband does ask, "What do you want from us?" And Tommy says, "I want to spend the night, and then after that, we're leaving." Little do they know, though, on the outside, there are poachers who have found Tommy's camp from the night before, and they are hot on their trail. Inside the tourist center, though, the kids continue to play. Gus gets introduced to music, which he loves, and then the kids head off to bed. Tommy, though, takes some of their food, trading it for a new type of currency called MRE tokens, which you can use to trade in for military food. The mother, though, isn't concerned with Tommy taking her food. The mother is concerned with what the hell is Tommy doing with Gus. And Tommy says, "I'm trying to get rid of him," which is easier said than done. But the woman's concerned because she saw a mark on Tommy, which indicated to her that he was a pretty bad dude. Tommy, though, claims he's not like that anymore. He did what he had to do to survive. But she starts questioning him. "How many people did you kill? Did they deserve it? Are you coming for my family? Are you coming for my child?" But Tommy yells at her, "I came here for food. That's it." The conversation, though, then gets back to Gus, where she says, "You know he thinks you're going to look out for him." And Tommy says, "If it were up to me, there would be no kids like him." And she questions him on that, saying, "Why did you save him then?" And Tommy says, "Does it really matter? Here, I've got an idea. How about you take him? He's better off here than out there. And let's be real, you're the closest thing to a mother he's ever going to have." And the mother inside her seriously considers this. She then, though, goes and tucks the kids in. But as she's tucking in Gus, she sees the actual picture of Birdie that he'd shown her earlier, but she didn't really look at. And she sees the RR Colorado, and she says, "Is your mom in Red Rocks?" Because she's familiar with that location. She used to go listen to music there all the time. But Red Rocks is the latest clue on where Gus can find Birdie. She then tucks Gus in and says, "I want to talk to you both in the morning." And then she lets them sleep. But Gus can't sleep. He gets up in the middle of the night and goes out to the tourist center where he sees Tommy leaving. And he says, "Are we leaving?" But he quickly realizes they aren't leaving. Tommy is. Before Tommy can leave, though, they hear rustling outside, and it's the poachers. And Tommy asks Gus, how many are there, because Gus has that sixth sense ability, but Gus can't figure it out because it's raining. He just knows that there's a lot of them. The screaming of the poachers, though, wakes up the entire family. The poachers yell, "We're not here for your family or you, but we have reason to believe you're harboring a hybrid child. Because of this, it gives us the right to come in there under Abbott's code. So you can either surrender the hybrid child peacefully or we're coming in." Now, at this point, the husband and wife are telling Gus to be quiet. But then right before the poachers actually come in the building, Tommy, swinging a bear trap, takes most of them out. Everyone except one, who does come in the tourist center looking for Gus. But Gus isn't willing to sit back and hide. He uses his slingshot to distract the guy and even stabs him in the leg. But as Gus is staring this guy down, Gus holding a slingshot, the poacher holding a tranquilizer gun, the poacher gets distracted because right behind Gus, outside of the tourist center, is a giant stag. And this distraction gives Tommy enough time to take the guy out. At this point, though, it's become clear to the family that they can't keep Gus. Doing so would put their own family in harm. So they tell Tommy, "Sorry, man, but you're going to have to keep him." They put both Tommy and Gus in the chairlift and send them on their way. And on the ride down, Gus tells Tommy, "You don't have to come to Colorado with me. I'll do it myself." And Tommy strikes a deal with him, saying, "I'll tell you what, I'll take you to the next town, and then we're done from there." But as they're having this conversation, they're unknowingly being watched by three people dressed as animals. Now, in this episode, you also get an update on Dr. Singh. He's currently living in a gated community that runs on solar energy, and he's living there with his wife. His wife seems perfectly healthy, but then all of a sudden her finger starts twitching, and he goes in the pantry and grabs an antidote. He injects her, but he's running low, so he's going to have to go to the local doctor, and he does so on horseback. When he arrives at the doctor's office, which is a converted restaurant, he checks in, and as he's sitting to get admitted, soldiers arrive with what appears to be more medicine. And Dr. Singh gets uncomfortable. It's as if he's having flashbacks, but he snapped out of it when the nurse says, "The doctor will see you now." And as soon as Dr. Singh walks in, the actual doctor knows what he's there for, saying, "You need a refill?" The doctor then starts getting Dr. Singh a new refill, but then starts questioning him on how the latest dose took with his wife. How long was she in remission for? Were there any side effects? That sort of thing. Right before he leaves, though, she hands him a book and says, "These are all my records. Detailed documentation of everything that I've given your wife. Which trial versions have worked, which ones haven't." And she's giving him this because her medical days are over. The world has focused so much of their time for finding a cure that they've ignored things like cancer. And she's pretty sure she's got stage 4 breast cancer. The problem is Dr. Singh has given up medicine. But the doctor reminds him, "You don't really have a choice. And I know you'll take up my work because you'll do anything to keep your wife alive. And this is really the only way to do so." So Dr. Singh takes the book and starts looking through it, but he finds some troubling information. And when he gets home, it's obvious to his wife that something is bothering him. He informs his wife that he now has to take over the practice because the old doctor is taking off. And his wife is thrilled about that because who better to take care of her than her own husband? But he says, "No, you don't understand. Some of the things she's been doing goes against everything we believe in." And that's when the wife picks up the book and starts skimming through it. And she sees exactly what Dr. Singh was talking about. We also get introduced to a third character named Amy. Before the big crumble, Amy was a therapist, listening to people's problems all day and night. But when the virus really hit, Amy just hid out in her office. And she hid out there for a long time until it was safe, or as safe as it could be. And when she finally left, the streets were completely deserted. She heard a noise coming from the distance, but when the noise got closer, it was elephants. And this gave Amy an idea: head to the zoo. So she did so. And that's where she lived. Way happier living in a zoo than working the 9-to-5 job that she had. But then all of a sudden she hears something outside of the zoo, goes to examine it, and it's a hybrid half human, half pig left in a crate.